Before we singing teachers were teaching singing, we were performers. We were getting up on stage just as many of you are now, whether that was as part of the requirements for a vocal performance degree, or leading worship at our local churches, or performing in musicals, or gracing the stages of the world's leading opera houses. We have some experience under our belts and some insight to offer you into how to make that time in front of your audience really count. And so in today's video, some singing teachers from around the world and from various backgrounds are going to share with you their 3 best tips for a successful performance.
Greetings from Warsaw, Poland. I'm sitting here getting ready to go out and perform myself this evening. So here are my 3 tips for a successful performance. Preparation, preparation, thorough preparation. You can never be prepared enough. Number 2, once you go out there, it's not about you personally anymore. It's about you jumping over your shadow and telling the stories to your audience which you have prepared. Number 3, if you were a nervous performer, try and use this nervous energy and put it into excitement and the positive feeling of wanting to go out there and tell the audience your stories. If you're an overconfident performer, take care. Focus, focus, focus. These are my tips for a successful performance.
Chris Johnson here of The Naked Vocalist. So we're here with 3 top tips to ensure you have an amazing performance. Now there's so many tips out there and a lot of them may be to do with vocal prep, making sure that you're physically ready for the performance. But presuming you're doing the vocal work required and the warm-up and stuff like that, there are so many other things that constitute a really successful performance. Now, one thing that I think is really important is trying to vary the environments in which you sing. So performances often don't go so well when they're only done in the practice room. So maybe it's one of those things where you're going to sing 1 song, maybe 2, and you've done a lot in the practice room, but not much in a public environment, on a stage, or with a PA system. So if you are going to be arranging a gig where you're going to be singing very few songs, so you get very little chance to get into the gig, but you want it to be a real success, I would recommend running those songs out after practicing them in different environments, even if that is front room singing for one's family. I know that's super cringe for a lot of people, but you could do it. Or maybe you could pop out into an open mic night where nobody is going to be there who would be at your performance, just so you can get used to this. And it's really well known that singers who vary their environments are much better at dealing with the environment itself in a way that allows them to remember their techniques, their cues, the things they're supposed to do in the song to make the song wonderful. So that's my tip number 1, is vary the environment. Tip number 2 is visualization. Now, I remember going to a workshop a couple of years ago by a great coach called Ayana Seeley, I think. And we sat there and we imagined this long scene. It took about 5 minutes, but the nutshell version is we imagined being in a kitchen and walking over to this lemon, and we cut open this lemon. All the time our eyes are closed and we're breathing kind of lovely and soft. And we cut open this lemon and we bite it. And when we bite it, everyone in the room is just reporting the fact that they're salivating from thinking about biting a lemon. And that was obviously to reinforce the power of the mind over the body and how visualizing something generates a physical response. So when it comes to performing, especially in high stakes auditions, high stakes shows, again, 1 or 2 song environments where you have to be on top of that song straight away, visualizing that environment, the smells, the sounds, the sights, the people, and then imagining or visualizing that song that you're singing in real time. Don't skip the intro in your head. Make the intro happen. Think about how you're going to breathe, and then sing that song in your head, word by word. Don't miss any part out, and keep doing that. Because when you get into that environment will inevitably feel a little more familiar to you, because you've imagined it many times, and you've imagined what you're going to do with that song, technically, stylistically, or in terms of movement. So it's going to be mental practice and visualization is tip number 2. Now, tip number 3 is around the two-way conversation, the non-verbal subliminal energy that goes between you and the audience. Because when we think of a successful performance, we think of delivering the vocal really well, with emotion, with our dance moves, whatever, right? So we might often focus on that. But in the world that I've come from, which is very much singing for people for a good time, when we got reviews back from our band, it wasn't often actually speaking specifically about the vocals and the songs themselves, but the comments that would always come through would be, the band was so much fun. We had such a great time. Our guests always reported how wonderful the band were. And that's because the authenticity of the performance, the interaction with the audience, and making sure that they are involved in this performance, rather than we are 4 egos singing because we love our own voices and we want to be like the best in the room. That's not it. We would make mistakes all over the place. It didn't really matter because it was all taken in the stride, and occasionally it was actually turned into part of the act, which involved the audience and generated some humour in the whole sort of thing. So that generates a great result. So in your world, if you're there on stage for a little longer than a song, maybe you're a function band singer or whatever, it's down to you to find out how you involve that audience in your performance, and that you guys are very much on the same level. And I think that is how you get great reviews. It's how you get repeat business, and it is certainly, from the world I've come from, one of the best ways to be a successful performer.
Hi, this is Meribeth Dayme again. I've been asked to answer the question of what 3 tips would I offer for a successful performance. And for me, that is really easy. It is something that people forget to do. The first thing you need to do for a successful performance is set your intent. What's the reason for giving that? Or what do you want people to go away with? Do you want them to go away feeling better than they came in the door? You want to uplift them? What is it you want them to do? And then it's up to you to create the space for that to happen. So your intent can be, I'm going to create a very loving space where people can thoroughly enjoy the music and be immersed in it. That's only one possibility. The second one is visualize being there. This helped me no end when I had an incredibly busy schedule and didn't have as much time as I wanted to practice. So the first thing to do is to see yourself there, being comfortable on stage, knowing the words, enjoying what you're doing. And that visualization triggers your brain to doing what you want to happen. And it's amazing to me how many times when I did that, how comfortable I was the night I walked on stage. I wasn't always comfortable in the dress rehearsal, and if I had it to do over again, I would visualize the same thing for the dress rehearsal so I wouldn't panic my pianist, and I would visualize the same thing for my concert. Okay, that's number 2. Number 3 is the most important of all. Practice performance. We don't do that. We wait until the last minute to say, oh yeah, I'll practice all my concert. We are continually stopping, criticizing, adjusting every little thing. At the end of every practice session you have, And I really literally mean that. And ideally at the end of every lesson as well. Practice performing as if you're performing for a crowd of thousands. So you can't criticize. The only thing you can do is acknowledge the fabulous imaginary applause and walk out. No more adjusting that song. By practicing performance, it puts you in that situation on a regular basis so that it's not extra special when you walk out on stage. I've had more students tell me that they have not had a great deal of performance anxiety as a result of practicing performance. Maybe you don't know the whole song, 1 or 2 lines. Anything that is an imaginary performance where you give it your all for that moment. Okay, those are my 3 things. Enjoy.
What are your 3 best tips for a successful performance? Wow. Number 1, have something to say. You absolutely have to know and understand what you're saying, especially if it's in a different language. That's just a no-brainer. Have a point of view and speak from it. And this is super, super important, especially for younger students. Don't show us your point of view. Just commit to it and we'll see it. Yeah, I think a lot of that good student syndrome is, look, I'm going over here to perform. No, just go and do it, and we'll get the subtext if you're committed in the moment and if you're natural. But you need that point of view to start with. You can't, and your point of view can't be, I don't know this piece very well, I'm afraid. It has to be committed to being the character in the moment. Right. So understand what you're saying, have a point of view, and 3rd best tip for a successful performance, oh my God, rhythm. Drill your rhythm. We tend to remember pitch, like melody, but I'll tell you, pianists that you play with and conductors that you'll sing for, they love a singer who is flawless with their rhythm. So having just put in the time in the trenches and sit down with your score and look at it and understand where the dotted rhythms are and commit to them and make sure they don't sound like triplets, or understand where the triplets are. And if you're in French, know that triplet has a certain, forward momentum that a German triplet doesn't have, Rhythm's super important, and your pianists and conductors will love you for it, and you'll get calls because you're reliable. So that's what I have to say. 3 best tips for a successful performance: know what you're saying, have a point of view, and be flawless with your rhythm.
Hi, this is Kate Baker. Okay, 3 tips for performing. 1, warm up. I teach so much, and sometimes my students will go to a performance, and I'll go to see them, and I'll ask, did you warm up? And sometimes they didn't, and you can tell. Okay, and whatever that means to you, and if you didn't warm up and you get to a gig, grab a straw, because nobody can hear you, even a cocktail or a regular size, or just go in the bathroom and do a few, like, something like that. Okay, just don't go out there cold. The other thing that you could do is massage your neck, release your body, do a few stretches. That'll get you in there too. Okay, the second thing you want to do is really know your music inside and out. Know what part of the chord that you're coming in on, know if there's a pickup, know the form of the song, all those kind of things. Know the lyrics. So you want to take all the guesswork out, right? Know what notes you're going for. The second thing is, and this enables you to get to the next place where you're going to let it all go, because when you want to get to the bandstand, you want to say, I got this, okay? Let it go. Open up your mind and your body, and you can feel the energy of the audience and use it. And the band. You want to have really an interactive role between the two. So when I'm singing, I'm not listening for myself. I'm listening to the band, and I'm reacting. And I'm singing from my body. So I'm singing by feel, because sometimes the monitors are not great. And you're going to be singing, and you can't hear yourself. So don't scream. trust that the sound engineer's got you, or tell the drummer to turn down. To play softer, not turn down, he can't. But, take care of those things. So be careful in that sound check, all right? Really make sure that that's together. And that's usually where the volume comes from, either that or the guitar player. But make sure, you can tell them, you bring it down. Use those hand signals. Know how to direct the band. Okay? Thank you. Bye.
My first tip for a successful performance is to scout out the venue way ahead of time. I mean, days or weeks ahead of time. If you don't perform a lot, there's enough anxiety associated with the performance that you don't want the newness of the venue, the smell of it, the sound of it, the ability to get in and out. Where's the door? Where are you going to be? Where's your dressing room? Is there a dressing room? Those are questions that shouldn't be bombarding you just before your performance. And so you can reduce all of that by scouting out where you're about to sing way ahead of time. The second one is to gear your routine to the hour you will be performing. If you have an 8 p.m. performance coming up, you'll want to schedule your sleep, your eating habits, even when you take a nap, what clothes you're wearing. You want to be at peak level of performance when that showtime occurs. And that's going to take you a good week to 10 days to set up prior. Especially true for morning performances. If you have an 8 a.m. Solo you're going to sing at church, you want to start gearing your body so you're getting up at 5, maybe even 4:30. So you get showered, you get hydrated, you eat something, you digest. So you're at peak performance at 8 a.m. And the third thing is to over-animate your practice. I know everyone knows practice is important, but I feel we don't practice the performance enough. And so use your hands, animate, pretend like you're signing the song to someone who's deaf. And all of that's going to go away when you perform. You're not going to be gyrating all over the place. Everything will be reduced, so blow it up when you practice. Make yourself bigger than life so you reduce down to life size when you perform.
My 3 best tips for a successful performance are as follows. 1, be very well prepared. And this encompasses a lot. You want to make sure that your technique is adequate for the songs that you're going to be singing. So that means securing your technique, practicing, doing the necessary work, but also making wise choices about the songs that you're going to be performing. Choosing appropriate songs for where you're at technically right now. And it also means being physically and mentally and emotionally prepared for that performance. Being well hydrated, being well rested, making sure that you have a good attitude, that you're looking at that performance as a positive experience. And when you feel well prepared, you'll tend to feel more confident. And when you feel more confident, you'll tend to be less nervous. And when you feel less nervous, you're going to have a much better performance. And my second tip for a successful performance is to like and befriend your audience. Sometimes singers kind of get it in their heads that the audience is sitting there like a row of adjudicators with their little notepads, scribbling notes and critiques, trying to find fault in what they're doing, trying to find criticism. When in actuality, if you think of it like this, if you've ever had tickets to go see a concert, or even tickets to a show for a local band that you're not familiar with, you've never heard before, there's a certain excitement that you feel as you're getting ready, as you're walking through the doors, as you're waiting for the band to come up on stage. And there's a certain hopefulness. You're hoping that you're going to like that artist or band. You're hoping that you're going to connect with his or her music. You're hoping that you're going to have a great time. And your audience is feeling exactly the same way. It has invested time and money into coming to see your show. Those audience members are hoping that they're going to like you and that they're going to be able to connect with your music and that they're going to have a great time. And so it's your responsibility to ensure that they have a great time. So you need to act more like a host of a party. Invite them in, make them feel at home, make sure that everybody has a good time. And when you do that, the attention starts turning away from you and more toward your audience. And when that happens, you get a different kind of relationship with those audience members that really frees you up to have a great time yourself. How do we ensure that the audience has a great time? And when the audience is having a great time, we have a great time. And when we're having a good time, that shows. And the audience sees that. And it's this great cycle of positive energy. And my third tip for a successful performance is to stop caring so much about what other people think of your singing or your music. Now, I know that we all care, right? That desire to have a great performance, that pursuit of excellence, is the driving force behind our practicing every day and really pouring so much of our time and our money and our effort into perfecting our craft. We want to do well, and there's nothing wrong with that. It becomes unhealthy, however, when we start focusing so much on critiques and what other people are thinking about us all the time and what they're saying about our music. And so sometimes singers will focus more on those 2 negative reviews up against those 200 positive reviews. And it becomes really unhealthy, and they start to try to figure out, well, what am I doing wrong? And how can I please these people who are not pleased right now? And they start changing who they are as artists. They start trying to conform their music to what they think other people really want. And they start behaving in ways that they think other people are expecting them to. And so when we stop caring so much about what other people think about our music and our singing, that actually frees us up to be ourselves. It frees us up to fully express who we are on the inside and as artists. And that, in turn, will endear the audience to us.
Prepare, prepare, prepare. That's 3, hey? No, seriously, good preparation will go a long way to ensuring a successful performance. Firstly, good preparation will help alleviate nerves. Secondly, good preparation will ensure that the voice is fit and ready for the vocal task of performance. And thirdly, good preparation will leave no stone unturned. So lyrics, melody, narrative, stagecraft all get considered and rehearsed with good preparation.
Hi Karyn, it's Shannon Coates. And one last question that I'm going to answer today. What are your 3 best tips for a successful performance? So my 3 best tips for a successful performance are prepare, prepare, prepare. Kidding, sort of. So definitely prepare is the first one. And but prepare in lots of different ways. So mentally, I mean, the main prepare one is to obviously know your notes, know your pitches, know your rhythms, know your text, have all of that obviously done. But then prepare the character, prepare your context, prepare your inner dialogue, prepare your all of that stuff, obviously. And then prepare by singing for a small audience, even if it's just 1 other person or 2 other people, in the actual clothes that you will be wearing on the day that you perform. Prepare that way. And then prepare by doing lots of mental work. So thinking about what you are, where you will be, visualizing yourself there. And then prepare by giving yourself, now this, I like this better for younger singers, less experienced singers, but prepare by giving yourself 1 goal to accomplish while you are in the performance. And so an example of that goal might be that you are one small goal, maybe 2, but definitely 1, so that you are going to have, I don't know, silent inhalations the entire song, or you are going to sing with your tongue fronted and released the entire song, or whatever, one small goal like that, so that you have something really specific that you are working on and something really specific to judge your performance by. It's really difficult at the end of a performance to have a good understanding of, because you were in the performance, to have a good understanding of whether everything fell into place. Obviously, sometimes you feel like the flow's there, you're like, yeah, I know what's happening. And that's wonderful, but that doesn't happen that often. And so sometimes when you have this this really specific goal that you're working on, this can be really useful for you to say, okay, I was able to accomplish that goal 80% of the performance, and then that's something really solid and accomplishable. Something really concrete that you can achieve in your performance, even if you forgot your words, or I don't know, something else went wrong, or it just didn't go as well as you had hoped it went overall. There can be something really specifically good about the performance, so a goal that you have accomplished. So those are some things to think about in terms of performancing? You're welcome. Performances and preparing for performances. Thanks.
3 best tips for a successful performance. Do a lot of homework would be the first one. The more practice and rehearsal you have in terms of that's what develops real confidence in the performance, is all of the background work. So if you've put in years of background work, a successful performance is almost inevitable. If you're unprepared, a successful performance is unlikely. The second would be to, when you're performing, do not think, at least don't think much. You might want to make some small adjustments here and there, but if you start self-talking and worrying about what other people are thinking, how well it's going, all this type of abstract thinking, you're going to be in trouble. So no abstract thinking, only concrete thinking during a performance, at least 90% of the time. And the third one would be cultivate the ability to not be frightened. And when I say that, I mean struggling singers tend to be frightened. They tend to anticipate. They tend to be scared. You've got to cultivate the ability to nip that fear in the bud and ignore it. Great performances are performances that just where there's an absence of fear. So avoiding fear, learning to combat fear, learning strategies you can use to not let fear overwhelm you during a performance. That's the other thing. So preparation, strategies to avoid getting scared, and what was the other one? I can't remember. You go back.
My top 3 tips for giving a great performance. It really depends what kind of person you are, but if you're anything like me, I need to keep my energy levels on an even keel. I do have a tendency to get overstimulated, so that can manifest in feeling really nervous, or it can manifest in being too excitable, but there's an imbalance of energy there. So the tendency there can be to lose a bit of control over the voice and over-sing. So I like to drink chamomile tea all day, no caffeine, no junk food, nothing that's going to raise my cortisol levels, nothing that's going to make me have a mood swing, and just make sure I'm nice and relaxed before the performance. Number 2, sounds obvious, but warm up before you go on. And I used to be very naughty, and I didn't warm up, and I would go on stage and I would just blast it out. And you can get away with that to a certain extent sometimes. But for me, I feel more in control if I know that I'm warmed up and I can go on there and it's not Russian roulette as to whether it's going to come out exactly as I want it to come out. that means that the first song is going to sound amazing, and it's not going to be kind of by the fourth or fifth song where you really get into it. Also, if you're nervous and you haven't warmed up, the tendency is for everything to kind of clamp up, and then you have to force to get the sound that you want instead of it just coming naturally. Number 3 is a good one if it's your first time performing a particular set or a particular song or in a particular style. Run it by somebody first. So even if you're really prepared and you think you've got everything nailed, you've been practicing on your own, then going straight in front of an audience, really you need something in between that. So working with a vocal coach, or perform it to one of your friends, or maybe perform at a smaller gig and see how it goes down, or maybe just video record yourself and send it to one of your colleagues or another musician or somebody else who sings, or a teacher, and just get some feedback. And then anything that you've missed that's not quite working or that you need to change, you'll be able to do that before you go and do your performance. And then once you get it nailed and you get that positive feedback off the person who you've performed it to, then you'll go on stage feeling confident, having had that boost from the person who you've shown.
Hi everyone, my name's Christopher David Mitchell, vocal coach here in London, and today I just want to help you out with my 3 best tips for a successful performance. Tip number 1, preparation part 1. So by preparation part 1, I mean everything between when you first find out that you've got this performance. Everything from then up until the day before the performance. Learning the words is going to be so crucial, because if you're thinking about the words and what the next line is on stage, then you are never going to be able to be completely emotionally connected to what you're singing about. Technically, we want to make sure that you've got all the notes and that you can sing the song technically. You can hit the notes and you've got the stamina to do the song. Then, stylistically, you want to be able to put in nuances. You can go through the song and choose where you want to do certain riffs, where you want to do certain vibrato bits, where you want to do certain things breathy, where you want to maybe belt certain bits. Play around with all the levels you can create and the stylistic tools that you can put in to make the song your own. And then lastly, you want to connect to the text. I always like getting the lyrics, which of course you're going to learn, and then speaking them out first. If you can connect to the text emotionally the way you would speak it to someone and it means something to you, then when the audience hear it, it's going to mean something to them. Tip number 2 is preparation part 2. So preparation part 2 for me is going to be everything that you can do on the day of performance. I might include here the night before. So the night before, don't go out partying, don't stay up late, try not to drink too much alcohol. You know, really just try and look after yourself the day before as well. But particularly on the day, we need to be very cautious with a good routine to give us the best possible chance of success for that performance. So get the body moving, have a nice jog in the park, go to the gym if necessary. Just be careful not to clench on the weights, but a bit of cardio is going to be great. Get the blood flowing, get the body warmed up. The voice will naturally warm up anyway. Always watch what you're eating as well. You know your body, you know what you react to. If certain foods don't agree with you, obviously stay away from them. And when you wake up, really the body hasn't been hydrated for so long that it would be a great idea to drink maybe half a pint of water. Something like that would be great. Because also bear in mind, the water isn't going to hydrate the vocal folds for at least an hour or 2. So you really want to get that water hydration going in as soon as you can for the start of the day. Now, say your show is in the evening, say 7 o'clock. My personal preference and what I found most beneficial with my clients is to split the warm-up into 2 small parts. So rather than leaving it the whole day and then warming up at 6, sometimes that can be a bit last minute. You want to be doing little bits throughout the day. So I'd suggest a short warm-up around 1 p.m. say, and then another one around 5 or 6. So break it up into 2 parts. And tip number 3 is go for it and take a risk. If we've done steps 1 and 2 right, basically, then it's a calculated risk. But what I mean by this is the riskiest thing you can do is actually to play it safe. Just being decent these days and just doing a good performance really isn't good enough. When it comes to the actual performance and you're confident because you've done all the preparation, you want to take a bit of a risk. You need to be bold. You need to go for it. You need to stand out from the crowd and be memorable. And that is not going to happen from playing it safe. I might even go as far to say is the worst thing that you could probably do is just be decent. I would rather people loved you, most people loved you, and a couple of people didn't like it, which is what you find with the greatest artists in the world. Because they're out there and they're bold and they're not safe. And I have sat on audition panels as a vocal coach from 10 a.m. till 6 p.m. And when it comes to the end of the day, and you know, you've got to remember John, who came in at 10 past 2. Can you remember him? No. At the end of the day of an auditions, as a vocal coach on a panel, with all the will in the world, you can only remember about 7 people. Who do you remember? You don't remember any of the good ones. You don't remember any of the safe ones. You remember the extraordinary ones. You remember the remarkable ones. You remember the ones who made strong, bold choices and took slight risks. Feel confident after all that preparation. Feel confident to take that risk. You know, life's too short not to, a little bit. You have got to go for it and know that it's a calculated risk. So I hope that's helped, singers, and till next time, all the best.